Okay, this is my presentation continued. I timed out on Screencast-O-Matic, so I'm back. I'm going to start at slide 19. It says, provide a practice implication for your classmates to better serve this group. I took this out of one of the required Hodge articles from Campus Cruiser. It was a required reading for one of our weeks. It says, according to David Hodge, when working with non-mainstream populations, effective intervention is contingent on the cultural competence of the clinician. So that being said, cultural competence, according to Hodge, refers to developing an awareness of two or more worldviews involved in the counseling dialogue. Lack of cultural competence can have serious effects on an individual when relying on Western values and interventions to guide practice. And having an intact cultural competence, a social worker can implement interventions that are relevant to the individual's beliefs, values, and practices. This goes without saying in multiple areas on cultural competence. I know I keep touching on responding to Eastern philosophies with a Westernized culture. I'm not degrading Western culture by any means or Western intervention. But I am saying that when working with somebody, I think it's kind of easy to make the assumption that everybody thinks a certain way. I was talking about that with some colleagues at work today, that just because everything we see in the United States doesn't mean that that's international, that the world thinks that way. I think it requires a little bit of self-reflection on how others from different areas actually think. So even for efficiency, not to use something that is not congruent with an Eastern thought process, it takes a little bit of observation and research and learning with the client to learn about where they're coming from or how they think or how their social backgrounds have dictated the way they feel about things. So I think this is all really good for cultural competence as a practice implication. I think it's a really good start in empathetic engagement and the client-clinician relationship. So to continue this, just to be a little bit more specific and provide a little bit of a guideline, it says provide a practice implication for your classmates to better serve this group. In the required text for the class, Van Hook, Barrel, and Hugin, they reiterate this previous concept of cultural competence by adding a few guidelines to working with spiritually diverse individuals. According to Van Hook, a clinician should understand that a human has spiritual needs and aspirations. A clinician needs to know and understand how these needs and aspirations. And social workers should be able to engage in a client's description of spiritual and religious problems with the same knowledge as other areas of professional practice. So yeah, that being said, that's to kind of prioritize learning about spiritual competencies just as much as you would, rely on a theoretical framework. Lastly, religion plays a central role in an individual, family, and community life. I thought this was a pretty decent notion to transition into the micro, macro, and meso. So what can be done at the micro level, the macro level, or the meso level? So working in the micro level, micro kind of talks about the individual basis of working with an individual. So in working with Mike on the micro level, I feel intervention would be congruent with the initial stages of empathetic engagement. I would meet with Mike and discuss the nature of his beliefs and learn about his life experiences to promote cultural competency and how to guide intervention. I would assess how Mike perceives his version of reality and begin to identify relevant interventions to address his needs on the individual level. So on the macro level, intervention for Mike on the macro level could include completing a spiritual genogram to add depth to Mike's spiritual narrative. I feel this will help Mike when dealing with this discrimination based on his faith. I think it kind of strengthens where his spirituality is rooted. I think that's important. I would also suggest finding a group of locally practicing Hindus that can include the intent to educate others on the spiritual beliefs and rituals on Hinduism, to help others understand that Hinduism is a peaceful belief system that is not congruent with violence. However, to hold others in the highest reverence attached with spiritual guidelines with intent to reach the afterlife. I'm kind of rushing. I'm almost at my 20-minute mark, so I apologize. Meso. My views on the meso level can be considered unorthodox in Mike's situation. And working with Mike concerning discriminatory remarks, I would promote cultural awareness with every other individual that may be in question. Whether they're struggling with making derogatory statements or particularly don't care for a group of people and they don't know why. On Mike's behalf and people that follow other religions, I would advocate for someone to, read about it, or do some research on a different religion. So you're not making assumptions. Oh, say they're the terrorists that work at the gas station. Oh, they're going to blow us up. Ha ha ha. Maybe I never really thought that stuff was funny, and I can understand from an uneducated standpoint that they're the kind of things that get said in the world, which is sad. But it couldn't be the part that really resonates with me is how wrong it is to be derogatory. B, it's not even close to what their belief systems are. So you're taking a ancient religion and are basically degrading it in the drop of a hat by making a statement, oh, he looks like an Indian, he's got a terrorist, he's going to blow us up. So I would work on advocating for that notion with everybody that I came in encounter with, on the behalf for people who are struggling with this kind of stuff, who are just trying to live their life based on how their ancestor lived their life, which is positive. It's all positive. It's a good thing. So that being said, thank you. I was like this. I really, really, really enjoyed this class. I learned a lot. I've become much more spiritually competent, ethnically competent. I've developed much more in-depth views about my own spirituality. I was not expecting to get this kind of feedback or this kind of enlightenment from this class. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed working with all of you. And hopefully I'll be working with you guys in the future. So thanks a lot and have a good night.